Yes, today we have a lecture on health planning. Health planning is a new concept to India. The reason being, we have a glorious history of medicine in the past. If you go back 5,000 years ago, we had a wonderful system of medicine, Indian medicine called Ayurveda. The roots of Ayurveda are from Yajurveda, four of the Vedas, which were transmitted from person to person by mouth, parampara. Apaurishe, what they call in Sanskrit, apaurishe. There is no documentation. So our Ayurvedic medicine, its origin from the Vedas. Of course, it had a very glorious development. We had Charaka, Sushruta, great physicians and surgeons. And I do not know about anything about medicine, and the spur developed countries today used to live in caves. When there was a wonderful civilization in India. We know that our ancient civilization, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, now it is in Pakistan, at least people should believe that. I don't speak about unwritten and documentation period. The period which is documented from Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka the Great. They were mentioned in the history, and during that period, we had the Ayurveda. We have Ayurveda medicine, we have Ayurveda surgery. It was fully developed system of medicine in those days. You see, you cannot argue now that if there is some accident to the aircraft, there will be hundreds of people injured. What is the Ayurvedic medicine can offer its service to such situation? It is a hypothetical situation. You see, in those days, that was not the problem. People used to have some mild complex fevers, and then pain, small injuries, for which there is a wonderful medicine, Ayurveda. Till the 13th century, till the invasion of Islam, the Islam brought along with it the system of Unani medicine, which is not original medicine. Ours is original medicine. Ayurveda is the original system of medicine. Full research, full extent. You can explain everything regarding the body functions or various sort of systems, etc. The Unani system of medicine is, they stole the medicine from Greek, they added some pharmacology to it, and they said that it is Unani system of medicine. And they destroyed our entire Ayurvedic system of medicine and started this Unani system of medicine. But as I have already told you, they could not totally eradicate the medicine, though they banned every literature in medicine from the universities, Takshila and other universities in those days. They forcibly brought the books outside and they banned them. But fortunately, in our culture and civilization, where there is transfer of knowledge from person to person, Ayurveda to some extent it has survived. of course. Again, in 19th century, we had invasion from the British, first in the shape of East India Company, then the crown itself has occupied our country. And then started their rule. They had a good system of medicine, modern system of medicine. They brought it along with them. But that was limited to only the Europeans and then probably Maharajas and Jamindars. In the rural area, it has not gone. Because they did not take any interest about the people. That's why for their convenience, they brought this system of medicine. And you see, because of extreme poverty in villages, the number of deaths, death was very high. Children used to die. Pregnant mother during delivery they used to die because of some insanitary practices. So this was what was happening during the British India. They were very cruel. So if you see during the Second World War, Winston Churchill was there, Prime Minister of Great Britain, and the so-called Bengal famine, everybody knows about it, Bengal. So 3 million people died in Calcutta Presidency, where the food grains was possibly diverted from Bengal province to their country because of the poverty and lack of food. Number of people died. But still there are some kind-hearted people, British. They were there in our country. They took pity on us and they asked their teams, you just examine the country in rural areas and urban areas. What is happening as far as the medicine is concerned, treatment is concerned in India? To their astonishment, this particular modern medicine, British medicine, is there only in the towns, in the cities, big cities. In the rural area, they found the Ayurveda, whatever is the native medicine, they are just following. And then the Unani system is also prevailing in some Muslim communities. Because there was no support from the state, number one. Number two, in those days, before independence, Maharajas and Jamindars used to support the medicine system, or Ayurvedic system of medicine. And it was so beautifully integrated in the society that whatever the medicines you take, it is from the nature, from the trees, from the roots of the trees. And there was no side reactions, and they are very cheap. They are available everywhere. So a group of people, a sect of people took up this as their livelihood, and they used to dispense the medicine. But during the British era, because there is no support from anybody, and these new systems are continuing in a rudimentary way, our Ayurvedic physician used to be called as Vaidya, and the Unani physician used to be called as Hakim. It was going on like that, then they thought that they constituted a board committee. They went into the details in 1945. Of course, they have given their own report that definitely the health system in the country is not in good shape. Only people who are staying in the urban areas, that to high officials, are enjoying the medical facilities. And as far as the mass is concerned, there is no medical system. So our modern medicine system shall be established in rural areas as a primary health centers, so that there will be integration between the preventive medicine and then treatment. People can easily avail those services because it will be in their reach. They can go to the hospital. And they are also advised, you see, this rural medicine, deeper end of medical education, what we are calling today. It was a recommendation of Gore Committee in 1945, where all the medical students should work at least 3 months in rural areas so that they will be able to acquaint with the things and surroundings and prevailing situations in the rural area, and they will become good physicians. So after independence, in 1947, we got independence, and the first Prime Minister was Jawaharlal Nehru. He ruled about some 17 years. And then his own daughter ruled the country for another 12 years. Till it comes to 1977, almost about 3 decades, there was no much improvement as far as the medicine is concerned. In 1977, when Janata government took charge, first, they implemented the National Rural Health Scheme, which is totally oriented to rural area, where a representative of the community called as health guide has been introduced, and then he will be working as a sort of link between the government officials and the public. By that time, because we had 1975 Srivastava committee report also came, and he recommended even sub-centers in addition to primary health centers, so that the paramedical persons will be there, and then this health guides will work as a link between the government officers and the public. So this was the thing, and they constituted the administration, planning. We cannot plan separately for the medicine, you see. We had, during Jawaharlal Nehru period, we had National Planning Commission. Planning Commission, which includes, it includes employment, it includes education, it includes health sector, it includes agriculture, it includes mother and child welfare. So there are so many subjects are there. And all these requirements should be taken into consideration. And over the 5 years, how much allocation of fund shall be there for each sector, and what are the targets till year. At the end of the year, they used to give certain targets and monitor what are the achievements. So, like that, 5 years planning is planning mission. They are 5 years planning years. Like that, it was going on, but unfortunately, there was no much progress. When Janata government came in 1977, they introduced first rural health scheme. Then they have taken this particular National Family Planning Program into the concurrent list, into the central government, and it has given the status of union and concurrent list. So that the advantage is the states will get the funds from the government. Otherwise, the health is totally the subject of the state. The state government has to spend money on medical facilities, which is beyond its. But because there's a lot of unemployment, lack of food grain, poverty. Because of this health, particularly these state governments could not spend much on this health. But after these planning commissions recently, when Bharatiya Janata Party is coming to picture, into power, they have started planning called Niti Ayog, National Institution for National Institute for Transformation of the country. Niti Ayog, National Institute for Transformation. Transformation towards betterment. It has got 15 years vision, 7 years strategy, 3 years planning. This is altogether a new system. We'll wait and see. See, as far as the planning commission concerned, 5 years plans, we have not seen much progress because the elections also will come every 5 years, and the party which has come into the power waited till the last year. Then, of course, they used to spend something, and as a note bank, provide some social welfare measures and spend the money without any growth in the community. So now we'll see what happens with this Niti Ayog. Now, even during this short period, we have seen certain improvements. You see, ours is the first country to manufacture generic medicines and export over 100 countries. We are the largest country today, as of today, to produce generic medicines and exporting to 100 other countries. And you will also surprised to know that medical tourism, which is a very recent issue, people are visiting India, and our earnings from medical tourism, it was only small beginning in the beginning, maybe about $3 billion per year. But now in 2020, almost we have planned, and we are going towards earning of $9 billion. Fantastic improvement. So like this, we shall still wait and see what happens in the future. No doubt, what we want to learn is, see, how the system of medicine managed in our country. You see, there is a structure, there is an infrastructure in the center, in the state, and in the district. In all these 3 areas. In the center, we have Minister of Health and Family Welfare. Under him, there is Secretary and deputies, a host of other officers. Their function is to make policies and allot funds to each state. And we have Central Council of Health, where all our health ministers are members in that particular Central Council of Health, and headed by the Cabinet Ministry for Health, so that they will be taking certain decisions for which our health ministers from the states should support or oppose whatever the points they have in their mind. They can open their discussion, and finally they will be taking, accepting that particular program. Today, we have a very important contribution from the present government, the Ayushman Bharat, where 5 lakh rupees are allotted to each family, where they can spend that money either for the operations or purchase of medicines, whatever it is. 5 lakh rupees is the limitation to reduce the out-of-pocket expenditure from each family. They have decided 60% is from the government, central government, 40% from the state. It's a wonderful program. As on today, some people are already started enjoying. But some states, our neighbor state, Telangana, and then Chhattisgarh, another one, West Bengal, where they are, of course, we don't know. To the best known reasons, they have refused. Maybe some vote bank politics, etc. They are losing the facility given by the central government about 60%. Huge amount. We don't know why. But at last, majority of the states has accepted for this scheme. So like that, we have the Minister of Health and Family Welfare, and then his, they provide the various policies and then release the budget, etc. From there, it will be transmitted to each state. And at the state level, we have an organ of public health, how they are administered, what is the structure of the administration, and who are the people there at the helm of that place in the state. We have a state health minister. Under him, there is the principal secretary of health, medical and family welfare. He will be supported by other deputies of these other secretaries, other officers, and a technical advisor who is called as a director of health, director of medical education. These two things are kept under the control of the Minister of Health and Family Welfare. So they take certain decisions. See the recent modifications in the medical curriculum and education. We know the GMR, graduate medical regulations, the MCI recently introduced. And they have to be introduced with the state, for which our state government is responsible, particularly health department. So you have a medical education director who will look after the medical education, and a director of health, where there will be districts. You see, there are so many districts. From there, they will give the directions to each district, so that there will be national programs. So in the district, with the help of the district collector, PMNHO, will allocate the funds to each national. You see, now here, the most important component in the entire health system is district. Why? Because the cutting edge and actual implementation of all health programs, national health programs, other benefits through the district administration to the people. District administration to the people. And the kingpin in this particular administration is district collector. This is again British legacy, where we have about 707 districts in our country as of today. And each district is held by the district collector. And they are answerable to the cabinet secretary in the center, Minister of Health and Family. See, It's a beautiful structure, even though it is British legacy. Sometimes when there is failure of the entire government, sometimes we can't say, we can't force a situation where there is a lot of disturbance in the political body, and then suddenly all political parties fall down. And in such situation, even then, the administration will not stop. The entire administration will come under the purview of the district collector, the magistrate, including the law and order and all the other departments. He will be administering the thing, and then he will be in contact with the cabinet secretary. Cabinet secretary is like prime minister, you see. Things can go on without any interruption. So, the district administration is very important here, even for our medical and health services also. He is supported by the, of course, DMNHO is custodian of health of the people in the district. But you see, it is not only dispensing medicines. You have to see that environmental sanitation is kept in good condition. Supply of drinking water to be potable, and provide healthful housing for the poor, and uplift the socio-economic status of some of the people, some of the families, where the poor, even they cannot have approach for the food grains. And some of the programs from some departments like Women and Child Department, where they supplement nutrition for the mothers, antenatal mothers, and children. So what do you understand by this? What we understand is the DMNHO should maintain rapport with all these departments with assistance of the collector, so that many departments will progress along with them. Our health also will progress. So you have a district medical and health officer, and you will have 3 deputy DMNHOs, 3 divisions. Each district will be made into 3 divisions. District will be headed by the collector. Each division will be headed by the sub-collector. And of the sub-collector, we have tahsils. Tahsils, maybe 10 or 12 each subdivision. Headed by the tahsildar. Likewise, in our own medical and health department, we have DMNHO at the district level. We have deputy DMNHOs at the division level, and you have medical officers at the tahsils. Maybe 2 or 3 PHCs sometime. The PHC will be headed by the PHC medical officer. So, from revenue, you have collector, you have sub-collector, you have tahsil. So, this is the administrative organ in the district. Ours is the democracy, and there shall be some local self-government in this. Otherwise, it becomes an autocracy. You see, collector says something, DMNHO does something, and there is nobody to ask what's going on in the community, then ultimately, sometimes some wrong things can happen. So, in our country, we have local self-government to control these things. What is the local self-government? In rural areas, we have one type of local self-government. In urban areas, we have another type of local self-government. As far as the rural area is concerned, you have village. We have village. Each village will have a sarpanch. You have a Gram Sabha there. You have got opinion leaders from the particular village. And if you go to higher level, you have a Panchayat Samiti. Panchayat Samiti. You'll have Panchayat President, in which all these village sarpanches will be the members and they will elect a Panchayat Samiti. And from there, if you go to the district level, you have Jilla Parishad. He is a chairman, he is also elected member. That is the local self-government, where in Jilla Parishad, JP chairman is the head. You have Samiti presidents, you have all the ex officio members, there is MLA in the particular region, MP, and then some socially very important notified persons. There are members. And the collector is non-voting member. The collector is also there, but they cannot vote. And the budget is directly released, Jilla Parishad, where they sit together. They will submit a budget report every year, where there will be allocations for the district. There will be program implementation plans from each tahsils or blocks, even from villages. So all of them put together, they will be implementing this particular policies. If you go to the urban side, you have municipal towns, you have municipalities, you have municipal corporations in urban areas. Municipal corporation is headed by the mayor, and there will be commissioner, usually an IAS officer. And in municipalities, you will have a chairman, and you will have a commissioner, usually what is that? Group 1 officers. And you have councillors. And the town means you will have chairman and also a very low cadre, government officer, Congress, commission. So like this, the entire administration is going through in the district to the collector, to the local self-government, and the DMNHO and the doctors in primary health centers, they should always maintain a liaison with all these officers. Otherwise, they cannot make any administration in the health department. Rural water supply is very important. See, today we are able to control the diarrhea and other communicable diseases once upon a time, vital fevers, other gastroenteritis problems. All these problems are controlled because there is a separate rural water works department where engineers are there, they are properly coordinating the water. And there are some checking mechanisms where Nagaland people will be taking the water and estimate the chlorine content and will be guiding the water works department. So they will get correct benefits. And there is malnutrition. There are infections. Unless and until you have a close liaison with the Anganwadi centers, where the supplementary nutrition is provided. It is from the women and child development. You have to have a good liaison with the project officer. Otherwise, it will be difficult to improve the malnutrition. Once upon a time, there used to be a number of cases of kwashiorkor and harassment, protein allergy malnutrition cases. Today, we will rare to see. There may be some wasting and stunting to some extent. But protein allergy malnutrition is not there today. It's a very different because of these programs. You see, the mother and child comes to your primary health center clinic. We try to estimate their health status, their nutrition is not proper. From which place they have come here? Is there any center there? The Anganwadi center. Who is the teacher there? Have you got registered there? There they are supplying food free of cost. Are you consuming it? They are also giving iron folic acid tablets, where the anemia is very frequent to the antenatal mothers, children, and even adolescent girls and boys. So, you must know what is happening around you, particularly from in liaison with the local self-government and other officers. If you have any problem at any stage, collector is the highest authority. You can directly go there and you can represent to the collector. To the extent possible, unless and until you are socially a good person, a good tempered person, and spend some time with patients. We cannot solve the problems in primary health centers among the doctors, and then doctor community with other officers like Tahsildars, Mandal Development Officers, and other opinion leaders, local politicians. Always there will be a problem will be created by them. Unless and until the doctor and the peer minister have the capabilities, the communication abilities, a sort of friendliness with them, we cannot maintain good administration in the health department. Now, ultimately, what is our idea is to see that there is overall development of the community. Overall development of the community. That's what the objective of the government. Unless community develops, where is the question of country development? The objective of the community development is, see, raise their standard of living, raise their literacy, raise their social status, and bring them in concurrence along with the country, so that they will be contributing something for the development of the nation. And ultimately, they will also become part of the government, part of the country. There shall not be any, in future, there shall not be any difference between the rural area and urban area. What are all the facilities we are enjoying here? We have better schools, we have better transport, we have better hospitals, we have better amusements, we have better infrastructure. We have better administration through the offices, we have better law and order in urban areas. Unless these things crept into the rural area and they also enjoy all these facilities, there is no possibility for them at any time to come on par with the urban people. Ultimately, our aim is to see that there is no difference between urban and rural. Today, you see, in the computer age, the time and space is place of work is irrelevant because of the internet. Whether you sit in Los Angeles or San Francisco or Visakhapatnam or Bengaluru, it doesn't matter. Time and place. The axis of internet is same for anyone, wherever. So, unless these facilities shall also go to the rural areas, rural people also use this particular facility, we cannot develop equally, and then the gap which is already there between rural and urban will go further. And people try to migrate from the villages to the urban areas. And the present problem, we are seeing number of slums where there is overcrowding without any basic sanitary facilities, without housing. They are subjected to some by the political people or local leaders exploitation by various means. Sexual harassment. There is gunda, danda, collecting money from them. All these things are happening. Why? Because people are migrating from villages to the urban areas. Because all these facilities are better available than compared to the rural areas. And now it is our responsibility to see that this gap should not go further. I myself wondered when our great Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, when he says that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, inclusive growth, collective responsibility. Inclusive growth and collective responsibility. Collective work. You see, so that what happens is whatever the development we are getting from the collective work, that shall be distributed to all the people. There must be benefit for all the people, either rural or urban. So first of all, we have this concept of this rural development program in 1952. Our first rural development program, community development program, because we have a cadre called block development. The block development officer who is in charge of, there may be some maybe 100 villages, population of some 1 lakh or so. So they have taken the rural areas and community as a unit and try to provide them things like, you see, you have the small farmers, number one. Number two, there are labor who are working on the cultivation field. And you have artisans in the sense, see, they will be making some agricultural equipment, agricultural tools, etc., which will be useful for the cultivation. See, they are locally made and they are also cheap. See, instead of that, today what we are doing is we are purchasing big tractors and then other modern equipment where there are no facilities for them to maintain them, and the recurring expenditure is small. With the result, today the farmer is not able to survive. Whatever he produces in his field, agricultural field, and try to sell them, there is no competitive price, and he is getting very low amount, which is not even meeting the expenses, recurring expenses which is put in And what about the capital expenses? Capital expenses he brings from some loan from the bank or some money lender, and ultimately he falls prey for that particular thing, and people are committing suicides and all these things we are seeing. So our aim is to see that there is local artisans are there. So give them small loans and try to develop them so that they will manufacture small goods. And there are craftsmen are there. You see, in villages, there are some talented people. Here you see the Yeti Papaka, they make beautiful small toys. They got world-renowned art. And you have some Dwappa Mahilas, they will make some small bags, small things which are very attractive, decorative things in our house. Sometimes they make gunny bags to be used for shopping, etc., which is recyclable and reusable, which is from the nature. So, all these people put together, government thought that if in the community we support these people through the community development block and through the community development officer, he will identify all those people in the villages, bring them together, and whatever their requirements, he make a list of it and try to provide those things whereby they will earn self-sufficient, they will become independent, and the rural employment problem will be solved. Of course, along with it, our primary health centers and sub-centers are already there. The health sector is also there. So ultimately, they thought that we can eradicate poverty like this, and then there will be upliftment in the rural areas, and we'll be doing wonderful work. But to their astonishment, it has not reached its goal. The reasons are many. Number one, there is lack of commitment from the Black Development Officer himself. You see, he is supported by Gram Sevikas. Each Gram Sevika will be looking after 4 or 5 villages, and it is the Gram Sevika's responsibility to go to each house and see who are the people, unemployed people, who are the people suffering from diseases. Who are the laborers who are the lack of work? Who are the people who are not getting the pensions, old age pensions, or widows who are not getting the widow pensions, etc. All these things, they have to gather the information, categorically, and then submit to the Black Development Officer. Black Development Officer should get the funds or whatever the relief that is given by the government, and should properly distribute it to all of them so that their socioeconomic status will raise, they will be able to find their own employment, and ultimately the socioeconomic status will raise, and then automatically they will utilize all these health services which are providing in the rural areas, immunization, supplementary nutrition, referral services. There are serious things, and there are a number of national health programs. See, today, tuberculosis is a very important national health program because the resistance to the tuberculosis routine treatment. If such people are not identified either by our ASHA or by the Gram Sevika, and immediately put them before the PHC medical officer, that resistant bacilli will be spread in the entire community, and at later time it will be almost impossible disease. Today, that's what is happening. We give the first line of treatment, the patient does not respond to this particular treatment, then you have to subject this photo to the liquid culture and see the host of antibiotics to which this organism is sensitive. Then you take only those antibiotics and try to experiment on this patient. It's a very difficult thing to see. Unless the commitment is there at the cutting edge, that is the villages, by the Gram Sevaka, Asha worker, and it will not be possible. So ultimately, they came to a conclusion by 1977. Roughly, take it for granted, the Janata government, when came into the power, they have seen, and the rural unemployment was there, it's continuously it was there for the last 3 decades, what was then, and even today it is in the same dimension. There is no change at all. There is no change except migration of people from the villages. So taking this as an opportunity, they thought that unless we integrate, somehow we have to find something to eradicate poverty in the rural area, because that is the only method by which we can improve the nation. How China today become a developed country? Because of that, the community work is fantastic there, which is not there in our country. And our rulers are trying to their best to inculcate that habit and see that rural people from the government side, public side, both of them work together and bring the country to a level. So, if we integrate the services, integration of rural services, what are the employment opportunities, then development of women and children, then development of agriculture, and then development of some socially backward classes. We shall integrate all of them. All of them. Instead of in the community, see, earlier what happened? The community development officer with the help of Gram Sevaka get all those people to the block level, probably in a town, in a small town where the center is there. They expected people to come over there. Somehow it was not convenient for them, because if the person attends, he or she says some problem, then he says, no, it is not common to my birthday. Probably you may have to go to the Tahsildar, or you go to the doctor, or you go to the engineering department. It is not my job. Like that, people got fed up with this. You see, nobody is taking interest in there, unnecessarily be trouble. Let's stop this. So people have not gone. Now, what is the new tool? Is to integrate all these services in a particular place. All the people will be coming there, all the officers representing the representatives representing the offices, various department shall come out there, Gram Sevaka must be there, the other health personnel also should be there, so that there is a beautiful integration there, and people will be benefited there and that place at that time without going to various places. So this integrated rural development has come into the picture from 1978. There is some improvement, particularly for the last few years from the new government, there are many very good ideas. Like just now I told you, Sabka Saath, Sabka Saath, same thing. Collective responsibility and inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth? The term itself is baffling. Many people do not understand what is it. Even I've seen politicians of high order, as a fashion, they used to use this word inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth? They do not know. They have no concept. Because this is a new term people are using, I will also use this inclusive growth. How inclusive growth comes? Otherwise, there is an integration. So, integration of these services ultimately, definitely results. Now they are yielding results. We cannot deny that. But it will take some more time. Only thing is, the government should help, the state governments. See, the poor fellow farmer, by getting loans from the banks, money lenders, is spending on the capital. First of all, to sow the seeds and then other works, cultivation works. And then after that, he is cultivating, he is getting the reaping the crop, all right. When the crop is brought to the market yards to sell at a profit, nobody is coming forward in helping them. Regularly we are seeing in the media, it is disheartening to see some of the farmers from Rayalaseema, their citrus fruits are very famous. Bringing from there and nobody purchased, in a desperate mood, they thrown away all the lemon at the market yard. Like this tomato. What's happening? Why the government is not helping? If you purchase at a reasonable price, see, he is not a fellow who is like a Kabuliwala, I want this much benefit from this produce of an acre. He just asks for just 20% of his expenses as a profit. Why can't the government itself purchase the particular product immediately as soon as it comes there? And I say, even he should not come over there, he should come, go to his field, collect them and pay him. And you see, he will never come. He will never migrate to the urban area. He will happily sit there. Do you think people are coming with a happy mood to the cities, leaving the villages? Because there is no life there. Nobody is properly helping. There is no sufficient help for them. And the government, as if they do not know, they do not take up these issues to help the farmer. Ultimately, he is not able to get reap the benefits, and some people are committing suicides. Mind you, you may think that these things are not related to medicine. No. These things will come into community medicine, and at the responsibility of the doctor to see that these things, when there is an integration of meeting, you should be able to apprise the higher officials. So we are seeing extreme poverty, people who are coming to our hospitals. You see, there is nothing to treat them except feeding them. That I cannot do it. Particularly from some places, some villages. Some have arranged for them some food grades, free of cost, so that they will be able to improve their health. Doctor is integral part of the country development. Don't think that we are just away and a patient visits us and we'll examine him and then prescribe some medicine and there ends the matter. No, it's not like that. If that is your attitude, you can never reduce the infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate, which is directly reflecting on the health department. Because when the maternal mortality is high or infant mortality is high, people say that the health department is not working. Because it is a subject of health. Unless and until you take interest and apprise the government the various faults, various pitfalls, how they can get corrected. If you see the national health policies, so far we have 3 national health policies. Unless and until some demographers, some public health specialists brought to the government notice that unless and until we control the population growth, there is no possibility of improving the socio-economic status and health of the people. And the result is, immediately they started National Population Policy in 2000 and National Health Policy in 2002. The major component is control of population. The entire National Health Policy from the center, how they could do this National Health Policy, because it is brought to their notice by the demographers and public health specialists. Unless you stabilize the population, you can do nothing. So give importance in this particular health policy for control of the population. Likewise, first National Health Policy way back in 1983, they said, you see, tuberculosis is a problem, diarrhea is a problem, leprosy is a problem, malnutrition is a problem. These are all problems. Unless we control all these communicable diseases, there is no point in treating the non-communicable diseases. And we are not able to concentrate on them. These are all things which can be easily be prevented, and we are not able to attend these problems. Yes, in 1983, they gave importance to the control of communicable diseases, and the entire national health policy worked on control of communicable diseases. And now today, we have a latest national health policy in 2017 under leaders of the able guidance of the Prime Minister. There is a lot of out-of-pocket expenses for the poor people in the village. There are some corporate hospitals. They give advertisements that you just come to our hospital and get admitted into a hospital. Whatever may be the ailment, whatever may be the disease, it will be cured and you will gain total health. You will become just like a normal human being. You will gain strength, you will have strength, and good health to go back to your original activities. Poor fellow believing it. Poor fellow believing it. Because they are showing from equipment, electronic equipment, making gadgets, and making a lot of show. Poor fellow going to the hospital. Even I know during the dengue epidemic, even poor people thought that if the child is admitted, a child or patient is admitted in the corporate hospital, somehow he will survive because they will give some blood transfusion, etc., and see that the child will definitely survive. And the poor father, parents, taken their children who are admitted in the corporate hospitals. Mind you, after 1 week, they handed over the dead body, saying that it is beyond our capability. We made a lot of efforts to save your child. It is only because of the bite of a mosquito responsibility of the municipal corporation, responsibility of the commissioner, responsibility of the government. We tried our best to save the child, but you pay 2 lakh rupees and then take the record. That was the situation. This is what is called out of pocket expenditure. The fool fellow, either have to sell his property, house, or pledge his whatever 1 or 2 acres of land, get the money and take the dead body back. That's why today the central government, Ayushman Bharat, scheme of Ayushman Bharat, where 5 lakh is contributed to the central government. Any family can utilize it. All below poverty. He said some 80 crore people will benefit by this. Some states did not implement, I have just told you, the best, more reasons for them. So this particular program is to control the out-of-pocket expense from the poor people. So like that, in health planning, sometimes a situation may arise to announce the policy, because this is the problem which is haunting everybody and is a very important problem. It has to be solved by any means. Then you take it into the policy for the particular subject and take time in a fixed frame and see that by that time we achieve that goal. This is what is called health policy. So we have health planning, we have management, we have district administration, and we have some important schemes like Ayushman Bharat. And sometimes we may go for, as per the necessity, for national health policy. These are all various concepts in health planning and management. This is only an introduction. What I gave you today is only an introduction. From the next class onwards, we will go into subject by subject. I talked to you a number of issues today, and we'll go subject by subject from next class onwards. We will meet next time.